Um, yes, this this started with The Last Templar was originally a screenplay that I wrote in 1995, 96. So it was never intended to be a novel at the start. I was a screenwriter, and this was the third screenplay I ever wrote. And um, and when I wrote it, it was very much there were these. The idea, the the trigger to the story was to write a contemporary thriller that had to do with the Templars, the mystery, the secret of the Templars. And as a screenplay, it opened in Acre in 1291. So there's this big scene of the Battle of Acre and the last few remaining Templars escaping from the city that was being pummeled and annihilated by the Muslim armies. And then throughout the screenplay, we lived through these scenes because this was meant to be a movie. So there was, for me, that as a screenwriter, one of the early lessons in screenwriting is show, don't tell. You don't want to hear talking heads, people sitting in a museum talking about what they discovered or showing what they're reading in a book. You actually just want to go back and live it on screen. So The Last Templar as a screenplay was very much designed with these big epic scenes that take place back during the days of the Crusades. So when it came time to turn it into a novel many years later, 5, 6 years later, around 2000, which is when I started adapting it into a novel, it felt very natural for me to follow the same um, uh, method of storytelling, if you like, because, and I think I get that a lot from readers. I get a lot of comments that the books feel like movies in the sense they're very visual, they're very visceral. You feel you're actually living through the story while you're kind of watching it unfold in your mind while you're reading it. It's not a passive experience. So it's my sixth novel. It's about the hero is again Sean Reilly, who we first met in The Last Templar, and it's a contemporary thriller about uh, it starts off with the death of a Russian scientist, a Russian diplomat, who jumps out of a fifth-story window in Manhattan, and this death is assigned to Riley. It's a tricky situation. He's a diplomat. Was it a suicide? Was it a murder? And very quickly things spin out of control. There's Russian mobsters involved. There's a Korean carjacking gang. There's a missing high school teacher of Russian origin. Who has he run away? Has he been kidnapped? There's KGB. There's CIA. All kinds of different parties are involved in this mystery that Riley's trying to figure out. And it all seems to go back to something that has its origin back in the days of Rasputin. And so, as I did with other books, with The Last Templar and with The Sanctuary, um, I have two parallel storylines. Basically, when we're going to talk about what they're uncovering that happened in the past, we actually go back to the past and live it. So there's a parallel storyline that takes place in Russia from 1906 to 1916, which is about Rasputin and his rise to power from, as you said, from this illiterate peasant monk to the person who you could say he's pretty much. I mean, he has a his presence and his actions were a great factor in ushering in communism, which affected the world in a huge way, obviously.